Hello, I'm an 10-minute English teacher. Let's get you exam ready. Today we're thinking about An Inspector Calls by J.B Priestley, and I'm going to be providing you with a summary to Act 3. Before we move on, don't forget to like and subscribe. There are plenty of tutorials for An Inspector Calls and other texts that you might be studying, as well as English language, to help you to revise and be prepared for your exams. Let's get you exam ready. Okay, now let's think about Act 3 and turn you into an Act 3 expert. In front of you are 8 key images. Each one of those is referring to one significant moment that takes place in Act 3. By the end of our time together, you should be able to recall all of the key events for Act 3 using these images to guide your memory. Okay, Act 3 starts with us finding out about Gerald's involvement. So he's been very drunk at the Palace Bar, and that's where he's met Eva Smith, Daisy Renton. He's met her at the Palace Bar, and she may have been prostituting herself there, but that's not made clear. He reveals that he drunkenly followed her home and forced his way inside and then forced himself upon her. Then we hear about the stolen money. So Eric explains that Eva Smith, Daisy Renton, did not want to take money from him, and as it was stolen, which confirms Mrs. Burling's misjudgment. Mr. Burling is left incredulous and furious, but by insult to him, and he sees himself as the victim of Eric's poor judgment, and doesn't really mention Eric's forcing himself on Eva Smith or Daisy Renton. The inspector then departs. So the family are in chaos and turmoil. They're arguing with each other. And then the inspector takes charge masterfully and then gives an impassionate speech about social justice before leaving. So Priestley uses the inspector to speak directly to his audience here, a technique called authorial intrusion. The key message of the play is delivered at this point, and he talks about millions and millions and millions of Eva Smiths and John Smiths, and talks about the idea that their lives are intertwined with ours. There's a clear division at this point. So the younger characters and the older characters are in opposition. So the older characters, Mr. and Mrs. Burling, failed to take any responsibility for their actions. They haven't changed. They're static characters. SHEILA and Eric have seemed to change at this point, and they are taking responsibility and they're remorseful. So they're in opposition with their parents. And you can call them dynamic characters. That's the opposite of being a static character. But it's at this point that there's a turn or a change in SHEILA, perhaps. So she takes a sudden turn towards becoming what we could call a false hero. We've seen all this reflective attitude from SHEILA, and that departs at this point. And she brings up whether or not the inspector was an inspector at all, which gives her parents a way of absolving themselves of all responsibility. Gerald returns, and he's been out and asked a police constable if he knew the inspector, and that person has never heard of him. The family work out also that they never saw the photograph at the same time. And at this point, SHEILA is undecided about her relationship with Gerald. So the tension begins to disappear completely after Burling rings Colonel Roberts to discover there is no Inspector Gould. Now, while SHEILA doesn't accept Gerald's ring back, she says it's too soon. Their engagement isn't back on, but their relationship isn't over. Interestingly, SHEILA had also earlier on told her father that she would be leaving, and she hasn't left and doesn't seem to be intending on doing so at this point. So very much the family is starting to come back together, and normality is returning. And the fact that Burling wants everyone to have a drink again is almost taking them back to the time before the inspector had visited them at all. So all of the messages that he's relayed to them and the death of Eva Smith hasn't had any impact on them as a family. And then the phone rings. So just as that normality seems to be restored, or a new equilibrium seems evident, if you want to use a key term, the phone then rings. A girl has died in the infirmary, and an inspector is on his way. The Burlings didn't change after all, and perhaps Priestley's message is that they won't. And the Burlings, which are a symbol for the wealthy upper middle classes, won't change. So perhaps society therefore must change itself. So here are those key images for Act 3. You should now be able to recognise those and explain what takes place in the act from start to finish. You might like to pause the video here, make yourself a flashcard, make some notes, and if you want to take that even further, you can think about key quotations from Act 3 to stitch to these key moments. Okay, check out the other videos on my channel. I'll continue to add content. Feel free to ask me something you'd like to see me cover in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share, and keep